morning, dear hearts, and please subscribe. We are on lesson 152, our new section of lessons. It is a big favorite, and the reason it's a big favorite, and this might hold true with you as well, not necessarily for this lesson, but if you're doing the workbook, you are really dedicated, committed to it, and you're going through something in this world, you come to a lesson that truly speaks to you and the situation that you're in. And so now this lesson takes on a whole new meaning and power for you and for your studies. And it helps to shift your mind, as this one shifted my mind, out of a place that I was, where I was feeling sad and abandoned. And it was the end of a completion of a relationship. Shocking, I'm sure. And it really was exactly what I needed at that moment. And from that moment, which was way, way back in the early part of this century, this has always been a big favorite lesson when I come to it each year. So the power of decision is my own. The first 3 paragraphs are incredibly powerful, and I think I'm just going to read them for you as I've done in the past, because so much of this lesson and this course also actually is explained with these 3 paragraphs. No one can suffer loss unless it be his own decision. The power of decision is my own. No one can suffer pain except his choice elects this state for him. No one can grieve nor fear nor think him sick unless these are the outcomes that he wants. And no one dies without his own consent. Nothing occurs but represents your wish, and nothing is omitted that you choose. Here is your world, complete in all details. Here is its whole reality for you, and it is only here salvation is. It is only here that our true freedom is, when we have this understanding. The Course does tell us, and other spiritual paths do as well, that we have written our script. This paragraph upholds that idea, that it has, whatever happens to me, I have already written the script for it. Now I have totally forgotten that I did that, because I have to in order to go forward. I cannot remember what I did, the veils of forgetfulness, but in truth, I have chosen this. The power for that decision is mine, and I get to accept that, because now I'm free to go through whatever it is that I have chosen. But just because I wrote the script doesn't mean I've written the exact outcome. So if I go into whatever is unfolding for me with the realization that I have made that choice, of course I can choose again. Second paragraph, you may believe that this position is extreme and too inclusive to be true, yet can truth have exceptions? If you have the gift of everything, can loss be real? Can pain be part of peace or grief of joy? Can fear and sickness enter in a mind where love and perfect holiness abide? Because where love and perfect holiness abide, my mind is whole, and it would not invite in thoughts of fear or sickness. Truth must be all-inclusive, if it be the truth at all. Accept no opposites and no exceptions, for to do so is to contradict the truth entirely. Here's a Janetism. Accept, accept. No exceptions. And yes, that's in Wisdom with a Twist. But that's it. We accept without exceptions. Salvation is the recognition that the truth is true and nothing else is true. This you have heard before, but may not yet accept both parts of it. Without the first part, truth is true. The second has no meaning, that nothing else is true. But without the second, that nothing else is true, the first is no longer true. Truth cannot have an opposite, just like love and just like God. No opposites. This cannot be too often said and thought about, for what is not true is true as well as what is, for if what is not true is true as well as what is true, then part of truth is false. Only truth can be true. The false cannot and does not have any essence of any truth in it. It is false, and truth then would have lost its meaning. Nothing but the truth is true, and what is false is false. And this is exactly what we need to understand. God created you. You must remain unchangeable. What God creates is changeless, is timeless. It is eternal. God created us. I am as God created me. Remember that lesson. I love this lesson. And we are unchangeable. And how can we be anything but unchangeable? Because we are an idea within the mind of God, and the idea never leaves its source. So as God created you, you must remain unchangeable, with transitory states by definition false. Those transitory states, those ideas from my ego mind, that I think these things can happen to me. I think I can be sick. I think I can be sad. I think I can be afraid. I think I can be I can be angry, and I can be in anguish. All of those ideas are transitory states that are not true. So only truth is true, and what is false is false. And I will accept that. This is the all-inclusiveness which sets the truth apart from falsehood, and the false kept separate from the truth as what it is. And now this lesson goes into and has several paragraphs about arrogance and humility. And we've had the idea of humility. It's been introduced in earlier lessons. And I don't know if everyone understands humility, and I'm going to give you how I feel about it. Humility or humbleness is being able to stand quietly in the truth, knowing that it is the truth, and not being subjected or to have any reaction or response to arrogance coming at you, to any attack thoughts, because that's what arrogance is. It is an attack thought. So is it not strange that you believe to think that you made this world you see as arrogant? God made it not. So I'm going to go to a favorite lesson, lesson 14, that God did not create a meaningless world. This world, as I see it, is truly and totally meaningless. God made it not. God does not make things. God only creates. The whole creative mind can only create because truth is true. And creation can only create what is true, not what is false. The ego only makes the false. The ego only makes illusions. The ego only offers us smoke and mirrors and deception. That is not where we want to go today. But the power of decision is our own, so we get to choose which of these things are we going to choose, which are we going to decide for. To think that God made chaos contradicts his will, and that to think that God invented opposites to truth and suffers death to triumph over life. All this is arrogance. Humility would see at once these things are not of him, not of God. And can you see what God created not? No, not in truth, because what God created not is simply illusions and smoke and mirrors. They are deceptions. We cannot truly see them, and especially if we are looking with the eyes of Christ, we will only see what is real. To think you can is merely to believe you can perceive what God willed not to be, and what could be more arrogant than this. So today, let us be truly humble and accept what we have made as what it is. What we have made as what it is. What we made in conjunction with the ego is, let us see it as it is and let it go. The power of decision is indeed our own. Decide but to accept your rightful place as co-creator of the universe, and all you think you made will disappear. If I pay no attention to that ego, it will simply fall away. The ego needs my attention in order to remain, in order to, my attention fuels the ego. It's lifeblood. But when I remove my attention from the ego. Now the ego is fighting and trying to now get my attention back so it will be able to continue in its deceptive ways. Today we practice true humility, abandoning the false pretense by which the ego seeks to prove it arrogant. Only the ego can be arrogant, but truth is humble and acknowledging its mightiness, its changelessness, and its eternal wholeness. Its humbleness doesn't really want or need to prove anything. It just knows that it is. It is. God is. The Holy Spirit is. Truth is. There's no opposite to it, and it doesn't need to be bombastic and try to look at me and see what I can do. It simply remains quiet and still and mighty and filled with the strength of God. The power of decision is your own. We accept of him that which we are and humbly recognize the Son of God, who is standing in front of us. And to recognize God's Son implies as well that all self-concepts have been laid aside and recognized as false. Their arrogance has been perceived, and in humility, the radiance of God's Son, his gentleness, his perfect sinlessness, his Father's love, his right to heaven, and release from hell are joyously accepted as our own. So we join in glad acknowledgement that the understanding that lies are false and only truth is true. So we practice for 5 minutes in the morning. We remember hourly, and we also have our 5 minutes of practicing as we go to bed at night. We think of truth alone as we arise and spend 5 minutes practicing its ways, encouraging our frightened minds with this, because this is a big shift for us and for our mind. The power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be. And then we're going to be quiet, go into that state that doesn't say it's meditation, and ask our self, our big S self, our true self, that he reveal himself to us. And he who never left will come again to our awareness, grateful to restore his home to God. Our mind, restore our mind to God. Our mind is part of God's, and now we are willingly and happily going to give our mind back to God and release the ego mind that we have been dwelling in for so many years and way too long. So as hourly we invite God in with the words that we began, that the power of decision is my own. God's voice will answer. All things are echoes of the voice for God. Yesterday, for he speaks to you and for your Father, and he will substitute the peace of God for all your frantic thoughts, the truth of God for self-deceptions, and God's Son for your illusions of yourself, that we understand and we decide that we have the power to understand and recognize the truth of who we really are. It's a beautiful lesson. And I hope this helped, and I hope you feel as energized about it as I do. So please like, please share, please subscribe, please comment, please practice, please stand in your humbleness and your humility today and in your strength, knowing that indeed you are part of God, and it is his will that you recognize that, recognize that, and be ready to come home. So smile and breathe. This is a great lesson to breathe to, and just pray that these awarenesses dawn on every mind today. Namaste.